I'll take any opportunity I can get to talk about Sgt. Pepper's. I absolutely adore this album, not only because of how influential it was, but also because it has some of my favorite songs by the band. We've done quite a few videos about Sgt. Pepper's on this channel, and I have to say that the comment section is always incredible. You guys are giving me your own experiences with the album, your thoughts on the record, and some of you were even around when the album was released, so you guys were telling me about how it impacted society back in 1967, and honestly, reading all those comments is amazing. It's part of the reason why I love making videos so much. However, this is a different kind of video, and I'm pretty sure that the comment section is not going to be as happy and as positive as it usually is, because I'm here to disagree with you guys. I've seen a lot of comments on every video I've made about Sgt. Pepper's of people saying that it's not a concept album, that I'm lying, that I'm spreading false information when I call it a concept album. And it's not only when it comes to Sgt. Pepper's, by the way, because when I talk about albums like Rubber Soul or maybe Pet Sounds by the Beach Boys, I also call them concept albums because they are, and people say that I'm lying in the comments. Now, I don't know why people have this fake idea that the only way that you can make a concept album is by connecting the songs through the lyrics. If the songs don't follow a certain narrative, then it's not a concept album. That's just simply not true. That's the most obvious and most effective way to make a concept album. We see that in albums by David Bowie, like The Rise and Fall of Ziggy Stardust. We also see that in Pink Floyd, in albums like Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall. Even The Who, back in 1969 with Tommy. But there's many ways other than lyricism to connect the songs in an album to make it sound like they came from the same concept, or they were written in the same concept. The first example I can think of a concept album being made was Frank Sinatra's In the Wee Small Hours back in 1956, one of my personal favorite albums of all time, and in my opinion, Frank Sinatra's best album. I know that a lot of you probably have your fingers in the keyboard right now claiming that that is far from a concept album because Frank Sinatra contradicts himself quite a lot in the lyricism, and you'd be right. That actually does happen. At a certain point in a certain song, he talks about a certain type of relationship, and then in another track, he talks about that relationship in a completely different way. So clearly, the lyrics don't really enjoy any sort of continuity. But even though the album doesn't really follow any narratives when it comes to the mood of the album, when it comes to the pacing of the record, the instrumentation, and most importantly, Frank Sinatra's performance, the album feels like it came from a single idea, and that was the first time that an album felt like that. Back in the day, it was just a collection of singles, a collection of hits. Frank Sinatra changed that, okay? And he continued to do that in the following album, Songs for the Swingin' Lovers, an album that also follows a continuity in the pacing, instrumentation, and performance, now more lively and happy. Then after that, you have multiple jazz musicians making albums that also enjoyed quite a lot of continuity in the instrumentation and in the pacing of the album. That would be people like Miles Davis, John Coltrane, Charles Mingus, but the first example in the rock scene of an album with continuity, with a uniform quality in the track list would be, in my opinion at least, Rubber Soul. An album with no continuity in the lyrics whatsoever. I mean, every song in here seems to be talking about something different, but when you look at the instrumentation, the songwriting, and the overall energy the album exhales, it's pretty clear that every single song was specifically made for this album. It seems like this was the first time an artist was more worried about making a good album rather than just good songs. Brian Wilson, one of the greatest songwriters and composers of all time, acknowledged this. He said this was the first time that an album had such uniform excellence, and that inspired him to make Pet Sounds, one of the most influential albums of all time, and another example of a concept album. This time around, even though still the album doesn't really follow a certain narrative, they do share the same theme, which made the songs feel even more connected. It was the next step for concept albums. But definitely the first pick for the first concept album would be the Beatles' Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, because originally the plan was to make every single song on the record under the narrative of the band within a band. It wasn't the Beatles making an album, it was the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band making an album. Now, of course, this only lasted for 2 tracks, the title track at the very beginning and With a Little Help of My Friends. Every other track after that has its own narrative, it's its own world, and it doesn't really fit into the narrative that was originally planned for the album. It's been said by every band member that at a certain point they just decided to make songs without them necessarily having to fit the narrative they originally planned for the album, but that doesn't really mean that they didn't have this idea of the band within a band thing while they were making the songs for the album, and that's the reason why the songs are so colorful, the reason why the songs are so different from anything else they had done in the past. The original concept of Sgt. Pepper's was never really them going on adventures as this new fictional band and narrating the stories of their adventures. No, it was the idea of a concert, of a live performance made by this new fictional band, okay? They wanted to create songs that sounded like nothing else they had done before, and for that they needed to change the way they were perceived, and that is what the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band is. So even if the idea was shelved, the fact that the songs are still very colorful, like Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, Lovely Rita, Within You Without You, Getting Better, everything sounds like songs the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band would make. God, I've been saying that name quite a lot on this video, fuck. What I'm trying to say here is that this idea that the Beatles were not the ones who wrote the songs, but this fictional band, still fits in the context and the sound of the album, okay? It was very different from what the Beatles were doing before. Yes, very different from Revolver. I know that people like to say that that album still had psychedelia, but it's very different, okay? That was a rock album with psychedelic elements. Sgt. Pepper's is a psychedelic album with many other genres added to it. And the fact that the marketing for this album was so colorful and psychedelic fit the sound of the album. So the identity of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band matched the sound of the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band album. I'm so tired of naming this album. So even if a lot of you guys like to say that this is not a concept album based on a technicality, the technicality being that the band members say it's not.
It's called the first concept album. It doesn't go anywhere. Mr. Kite, all my contributions have absolutely nothing to do with this idea of Sgt. Pepper and his band. But it works, because we said it worked, and that's how it appeared. Yeah. But it was not as put together as Pet sounds. Yeah. And it doesn't have a concept. It starts out with Sgt. Pepper and introduces Billy Shears, and that's the end, apart from the so-called reprise. Right. Otherwise, every other song could have been on any other album. Right. It's the reprise. Right. Mr. Kite could have gone anywhere. Lucy could have gone anywhere. A Day in the Life could have gone anywhere. So it's not really, there's no concept.
It doesn't take away from the fact that it feels like a concept album. It checks all the marks, and it inspired a lot of people, like Pink Floyd, for example, to make records like Dark Side of the Moon and The Wall, albums that are connected and enjoy continuity in the narrative. Of course, this is only my personal way of seeing things, my own personal opinion. That's why I'm really excited to see what you guys will have to say about this one in the comments. Honestly, when I listen to this album, I feel like I'm listening to the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band perform and not the Beatles. That's why I personally believe that this is a concept album, and I'll take that to the fucking grave.
I'm talking about the Boy Scouts who aren't allowed to masturbate. Oh. It's very tempting when you're wearing shorts, but I can tell you, you don't go blind, but very short-sighted.
And that's going to be it for today's video. I really hope that you guys enjoyed the video as much as I enjoyed making it. If you did, go ahead and leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any other videos that I upload. If you want me to talk about any other topics related to music, if you want me to check out an album, a song, or an artist, go ahead and leave it down below as well. I'll make sure to read it and fulfill your requests as soon as I can. I really do hope I can see you guys soon with another video, but until then, bye.